parliamentarians will be speaking about why diversity should be added to the national curriculum. They'll be talking about the importance of neurodiversity, the effects that a lack of education can have, why neurodiversity obviously should be added to the national curriculum, and actually how they would like to see that implemented. A lot of hours, a lot of hard work, a lot of effort has gone into this, and I really hope that you enjoy the passion that they give to you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Let's send back to another welcome on the brain homework again, and let's dog eat it.
Sorry, miss. What did you say?
Heard you definitely. 4th week in a row. I don't understand.
I can't understand you. I'm really sorry.
Alien, I'm not speaking until.
So let's look at the scenario. What can we see here?
Well, we have a teacher who's getting angry at her student for not understanding what she's saying. Put your hand up if you understood everything that the teacher said. Exactly. It's infuriating, isn't it? The student can't help it.
This is what daily life can be like for neurodivergent individuals.
So, what exactly is neurodiversity then?
Well, neurodiversity is something that is thought to affect up to 15 to 20% of the world's population. And it essentially refers to the fact that we all experience and interact with the world around us in different ways, and that there is no one right way of thinking, learning, and behaving. And this umbrella term is often used in the context of autism spectrum disorder, ADHD, as well as dyslexia. And whilst those that are neurodivergent may need accommodations at work or school, it is important to stress that neurodiversity is not the same as a disability.
In fact, neurodiversity encompasses a range of traits, most of which we see as strengths but some as challenges. However, there is still a large amount of stigma surrounding it for a variety of reasons. One of these is the lack of informed awareness that we have about what neurodiversity truly embodies. For this reason, we want to add neurodiversity to the national curriculum so we can have a more welcoming and accepting society who can help neurodiverse people.
So, where did it come from? The term neurodiversity may appear to be a bit of a buzzword in today's society. However, it has existed for much longer. The term was originally coined in 1998 by Judy Singer, and then it was adapted on by activists of the time. At first, the term only focused on those with autism, yet over time, it adopted a broader description to groups of people whose brains work differently, but in a structured and consistent way. Even though we've come such a long way with neurodiversity, unfortunately, it still faces stigma within its history.
Generally, people who displayed neurodiverse traits in history were put in institutions away from the public eye. This in turn created a fear of the unknown, and we still see this today, especially with the case in America. Following the Christmas of 2015, there were 100 children who contracted measles. This then hopped the border and infected another 132 children in Quebec, Canada. The real tragedy of this was that measles had been preventable for 50 years prior, but too many parents held the idea that vaccines would cause autism and were afraid to give them to their children. Of course, this was all a long time ago, so why is it still relevant today?
Right now, there is simply a lack of awareness and a lack of education of neurodiversity in schools, but we strongly believe that this topic should be added into the national curriculum. This is because this lack of education leads to lots of stigma and discrimination towards neurodivergent people, and many myths about neurodiversity overall, such as the thought that neurodivergent students aren't good at communication, or that neurodiverse people cannot be intelligent, neither of which are true. You just have to look as far as Einstein or Marie Curie. both of whom would be classified as neurodiverse by today's standards, to see just how misinformed these myths really are.
Adding neurodiversity to the national curriculum would help us to lead towards a much more inclusive society. We should teach children the do's and don'ts of how to treat people with neurodiversity for when they're having a sensory overstimulation, for example. These are the things that need to be included in the national curriculum in order for us to lead towards a more welcoming society.
Wow, we've learned a lot today.
So, what could we have done differently?
Let's rewind.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Lesson back to another Welcome on the Brain. Homework I set last week, hand in.
Sorry, miss, I can't understand you.
Don't apologise. Have you got your aid on you? I'll use the text-to-speech software and I'll speak slower this time. Could you please hand in your homework?
As we can see, in the second scenario, the teacher spoke much more slowly to the student and was patient and understanding of the needs of the student and even accommodated for those needs, thus making the student feel much more comfortable in the classroom.
So here are our top 4 tips on supporting our neurodivergent peers.
Tip number 1, be patient and understanding. If you see a neurodivergent feeling uncomfortable or if they need any help, try and talk to them and work out the best method that you can help them.
Tip number 2, embrace and accept differences. Acknowledge that different people might need different accommodations, such as headphones to help prevent auditory overstimulation or speech to text as seen in the scenario. So it's all about embracing and welcoming the neurodiversity all around us.
Tip number 3, be an ally. Stand up for those who you see being mistreated because of their neurodivergency. Be the person to make the first step towards a change for the better.
And tip number 4, educate yourself. Learn about the range of different neurodivergent conditions such as autism spectrum disorder, ADHD and dyslexia. And then by gaining this better understanding of these conditions, you can better empathize and provide appropriate support for your peers. And of course, this would be made much easier if neurodiversity were to be added to the national curriculum.
This is why we think that neurodiversity and how to support neurodivergent people is something that is important and should be added to the national curriculum. This way we can be more welcoming and accepting to the needs of neurodiverse people in our communities.
That's exactly right. And hopefully by being patient, by being understanding, by embracing and accepting differences in everyone, by standing as proactive allies, we can all work together, support each other, to foster a society in which diversity is cherished rather than ostracized. After all, a famous person once said, diversity is the one true thing we all have in common. So celebrate it every day.
So that was team 2, and I'm going to say an absolutely well done from me as your mentor because that was brilliant. I'm going to open the judges now to ask some questions.
Oh, thank you. Is that working? I have no idea. I'm so glad you're going to fly. I don't know if it's working or not, but brilliant. Thank you so much. That's so interesting. And I loved the use of the interactivity, the umbrella idea, and the role play was really great and made it really relevant. So thank you so much. I'm really interested from a St John perspective. I know we were talking about the curriculum and that's brilliant, but what are your ideas in terms of really supporting neurodivergent young people in St John, and what could we do better as an organisation?
Well, personally, I think, for example, when we have our weekly sessions, and obviously we all have our team leader, then they, for example, in the scenario, the teacher had a sort of speech-to-text software, something like that could be used for the team leader. Then also, I think that's, or, you know, different accommodations could be implemented in our actual weekly sessions, and also, from a St John perspective, as ourselves as cadets, I think it would be a great idea for us to be taught as well these specific ideas, because we have our first aid sessions, but also we should also be taught how to help neurodivergent people within those sessions.
That's great, thank you. Well, it's definitely working.
That was a really, really good pitch, and I also loved your use of props, and that was really, really inspiring. If there was one thing that you think schools could do differently, so if you had to pinpoint one thing that schools could do differently to help support those people that are neurodivergent, what would that be?
Yeah, I think, Vivian, thank you for the question. I think one of the main things that I think schools would be better off doing was definitely raising awareness at a younger age. I know there's definitely some stigma around it, and I think part of that stems from the fact that we're not really taught about it from a young age. Of course, I think it relates to the previous speech. There are some disadvantages from that, but I think the benefits of raising awareness definitely outweigh that. And if you implement it into the curriculum, raise awareness for those that are in primary school, of course doing it in a sensitive manner as possible, it would become a much less of a subject of stigma at an old age.
Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much. Amazing topic, and something that's obviously incredibly current now, probably not in my age when I was at school, but incredibly important now. You're right to say, Jason, that it is stigmatized, and I think education is the answer. At what age and how would you introduce it into the school curriculum?
I mentioned primary school. I'm not sure if you have any more ideas.
Yeah, so I feel like a great way to implement this into primary school is by having something called the Respect Charter, where you have different ways and ideas on how to respect people with not just neurodiversity, but disabilities as well. That would be a great way to implement it into primary school by making it seem almost like a strong sense, a strong way, a strong path to include our neurodiverse individuals.
And how are you going to find out on the spectrum who is what? Is there medical, or are the teachers, or who? How are you going to find out? Sorry, I was explaining myself. So for instance, my son is dyslexic. At school, they banded the word around, but actually we had to pay to get him tested externally. And the label that followed him round school was, the school that he was at, wasn't particularly a very kind label. So that goes back to the stigma that we were talking about. And so my question probably is it better to have a label and be stigmatized possibly by your peers, or to have a label and try and work with them? Does that make sense?
I think that having that label helps you know what sort of help you need and what accommodations you want to have for yourself, but it doesn't necessarily have to be something that you use to identify yourself, but more something that you can use to help you. So if you know that you need something to help you hear things, or you need more visual aids, then if you know that, you can get that help. And if we teach about it from a younger age, people understand, and then there's going to be like less stigma about it in the future.
Acceptance. Thank you.
Thank you very much.